वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नमोऽस्तुते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः। श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम Krishna Krishna Kanhaiya Lal ki Jai. Hari Om everyone. We are seeing the wonderful epic called the Mahabharata. Mahabharata, like Ramayana, is one of our itihasas. And unlike the Ramayana, which is the Adarsha, which is the ideal, right? Everybody is ideal. In the Mahabharata, not one single character, except Bhagavan Sri Krishna, is perfect. Everybody has their limitations, everybody has their flaws, and dharma is not easy to determine. We've reached the section in this massive epic where the Pandavas and the Kauravas are getting into the most heated moment that is going to trigger the Mahabharata war. The Pandavas and the Kauravas are cousins. They share the same grandfather. And the Pandavas are the ones who follow dharma. The Kauravas are the ones who follow adharma. 5 Pandavas: Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Sahadev, and Nakula. And 100 Kauravas, starting with Duryodhana, Dushasana, and I don't know the rest of the names. Actually, maybe 2 or 3 more names will be there that I'll know, but these are the 2 top worst ones that everybody knows their names. They have one good brother, amongst the 100. There will always be, like how in Lanka also when Hanumanji went, he said, what? There's a sadhu over here? Like that, right? So, there was one good brother, his name was Vikarna. We will meet him today also. But the rest of them were wicked, just like their names sound. So this is our Pandavas and our Kauravas, and there are big fights with each other. The Pandavas follow dharma no matter how hard it is, and the Kauravas, not that they don't follow dharma, they follow adharma 100%. So this is the status quo. Now before we start, a question for all of you. When in your life do you say enough? In procuring anything, it could be getting anything, it could be enjoying anything, it could be doing anything. When do you say enough? When you eat 1 samosa, 2 samosa, 5 samosa. When you eat 1 box of ice cream, a little box, or 5. When you do 15 subjects or 29, when do you say something is enough? When I was working, soon after university, I was working with a really nice boss. And we had gone to a networking event. And over there, he was trying to raise money for a non-profit project. And so he approached one of the rich businessmen over there, and he said, we're looking to raise some money. And that man said to him, I am only worth $550 million. That's Canadian dollars. This friend of mine, he's worth 650 million. So you ask him instead. Now, where do you say enough, really speaking? When will someone make enough money to say, I have made enough? When will someone eat enough snacks in their life to say, I have eaten enough snacks? When will someone get enough name and fame that they will say, I have gotten enough? Any thoughts? You'll have to answer this for your own self, in your own life, right? The verse that we chanted just before we started is from Bhagavad Gita in chapter 16, and it's talking about the Asuri Sampat, the negative qualities in a person. And that verse says that Asha Pasha Shatehi Baddhaha. These people with negative qualities are bound by ropes of hundreds of desires. Hundreds of desires. Now you see, does that reflect us? We have hundreds of desires? Thousands we have maybe, right? And Kama Krodha Parayanaha. And the purpose of that is, it is pushed by passion and anger like that. Ihante kama bhogartam anyayenartha sanjayan. And these people strive to accumulate wealth by unjust means for just sense enjoyment. This is exactly the description of Duryodhana and his brothers, the Kauravas. Now I want you to, I don't know if you are, how many people are familiar with the Mahabharata story? Okay, it doesn't matter. See, Duryodhana, let me tell you a little bit about him. He had an established kingdom that established generations now. He had great ministers. His guru was there. His great-grandsire, Bhishma Acharya, was there to guide. He had both his parents with him. He had 100 siblings. He had extended family support too. His mamu had come to live with them. And he had with him a friend called Karna who would give his life for him. He also had cousins who, in spite of trying to murder them, they didn't come to trouble him. This is what Duryodhana had. He had what people would call everything. But what he also had was greed and jealousy. And when there is greed and jealousy, it doesn't matter what you have. All that matters is what you don't have. And so what happens is these Kauravas, headed by Duryodhana, they try to kill the Pandavas one time. They try to burn them alive, literally. But their plot is unsuccessful and the Pandavas are saved. And now they come back to their kingdom and it is decided that they are the rightful heirs to the throne. So if we're not going to give them the whole kingdom, at least we should give them half. And they give them the barren, dilapidated, useless part of the kingdom. But the Pandavas take it. And what the Pandavas have is barren land. They have lived in the forest. They were born in the forest. They lived there for quite a few years of their life. Then when there was an attempted murder on them twice now. And they had to live incognito, begging for alms like Brahmanas. And now they have come back. And sounds like, their life is the sadder one. But what they have that the Kauravas don't have is they have Bhagavan Shri Krishna. And they have Dharma. And there's a phrase that comes over and over and over again in Mahabharata that says, Yato Dharma, Tato Jaya. Where there is Dharma, there is victory. And the phrase that comes before that is, Yato Krishna, Tato Dharma. Wherever there is Krishna, there is Dharma. So these Pandavas, with their hard work, they take this barren land and they build it into a beautiful, prosperous kingdom. So prosperous and so blessed by all different devatas and even asuras that they end up with the most money, the most prosperity, the most jewels, the most everything, the most fame, the most name, and they do a big, huge yajna in this kingdom of theirs called Indraprastha. Yesterday we saw this. We saw how Duryodhana and all his brothers had come along with so many other people. And Duryodhana gets very, very, very jealous, seeing the prosperity of his cousins. It is rightfully his cousins, but now he sees it and he says, why should they have this? Even though it is not rightfully his, he says this wealth should be mine. He is humiliated in the situation. Means his cousins laugh at him because he fell down. He feels like the world is going to end. He comes back and now he's burning with jealousy. And he and his team, they go and try to fight the Pandavas, but they cannot fight the Pandavas because the Pandavas are really, really strong. And so they realize that the only way to defeat these Pandavas is by trickery. So, this is where we start today. The Kauravas now are trying to come up with a plan by which they can defeat the Pandavas by unfair means. So see what they do. I pray nobody has a mamu like Shakuni. They had a mamu called Shakuni, their mother's brother. He somehow had this feeling in his heart that it is not fair that his sister was made to marry the blind prince. His sister should have married someone who was not blind. So he has in his heart that he's going to take revenge on this family. And he is the firecracker that instigates. He's the one who really chooks fire in this whole thing that's going to happen today now. And so he sits with Duryodhana and he tells Duryodhana, you know, I have a weapon that is more powerful than steel. You know what his weapon is? His weapon is dice. Apparently, his dice was made from the bones of his father. And he had a boon that whatever number he called and rolled, that number would come. So they were rigged dice. Right? This is what he had. He said, if I play, for sure I'm going to win. And not only that, Yudhishthira, his weakness is dice. So invite him for a game of dice and we will play and I will win his whole kingdom for you and you will get the entire kingdom without a single drop of blood being shed. So Duryodhana thinks, well, this is a wonderful plan, but they have to get their father's permission because he is sitting on the throne. He is the current king. And so Shakuni goes to Dhritarashtra and he says, do you know how miserable your son is because of what has happened when he went to visit his cousins? He has seen their prosperity and he is in despair about the fact that they have so much. And Dhritarashtra's weakness is his attachment for Duryodhana. And so they come, Shakuni and Duryodhana now start to twist Dhritarashtra's leg, twist Dhritarashtra's arm, twist everything that they can twist. And finally Dhritarashtra gives in and he says, okay, fine, whatever will make Duryodhana happy. Now this is not like some 5 extra minutes of screen time or an extra pine tart, fine, whatever will make my child happy. We're talking about thousands of lives on the line. And the king says, whatever will make my son happy. You see the danger of parents saying, whatever will make my child happy? Children, listen to this. The ending is not good. Now Dhritarashtra is supposed to consult with the ministers and the elders, but he knows what he's doing is wrong, so he does not consult with them. He gives permission for a sabha, an assembly hall, to be built, where they're going to invite the Pandavas to come and play this game of dice. So now this assembly hall, a beautiful assembly hall, is built in Jayanta. You know when you're jealous, you want to equal the person you're jealous about? So they had a beautiful assembly hall, we should have a beautiful assembly hall. So they make a beautiful assembly hall. As it is being built, Vidurji, who is the prime minister and also the uncle of the Kauravas, he goes to his brother Dhritarashtra and he says, what is wrong with you? This is not okay. You cannot do this. And Dhritarashtra responds saying, it is happening and you're going to go and you're going to invite Yudhishthira and I know that he is not going to disobey me because I am his elder. Dhritarashtra knows Yudhishthira is so held on to dharma that if an elder tells him something, no matter what it is, he is not going to say no. And so Vidurji helplessly now goes to Indraprastha to invite Yudhishthira to this game of dice. And Vidurji tells Yudhishthira the plan, and Yudhishthira says, no, this is not a good idea. You know, Yudhishthira is painted in every telling of this story. Yudhishthira is painted as someone who has a weakness for dice. But when you read the Mahabharata and you see his words, he tells so clearly that he is opposed to this game. He does not like it. He says it is not a good idea, first of all. Then he says, you know what? You are supposed to listen to your father. He considers Dhritarashtra his father. He says, but if your father does not have your interest at heart, you do not need to listen to him. He's very clear about this. But he also says, I cannot disobey my elders. And the rules of kingship are if another king invites you to come and play a game of dice, you cannot say no. It is the accepted decorum that you will accept their invitation. And at that time, Yudhishthira tells Vidurji that I hate to play this game knowing that it is going to lead to evil. So Yudhishthira doesn't go there excitedly like, yes, I get to play my favorite game. He does not like the idea at all. But understanding the laws of dharma at the time, he goes. And he surrenders to fate. He and all his brothers, his wife Draupadi and his mother Kunti, they leave Indraprastha and they go now to Jayanta, where they have been invited for this game. The first day, the hospitality that they receive is unmatched. The Pandavas cannot understand why these Kauravas are being so hospitable to them. They're being unusually nice. Now, when your enemy is being nice to you, you know something is coming. The enemy is not nice for nothing. Forget enemy. If your child comes to you and gives you something nice in your hand, you're like, okay, what do you want? If your spouse comes and gives you something nice, you're like, what do you want? Right? Now your enemy is treating you like this. So they know something is fishy. Well, they wake up the next day and it is literally the most terrible day of their life and the most terrible day in the Mahabharata. They were invited to see this beautiful new sabha. So they go and they look at it and they say how nice it is and they congratulate them for having such a beautiful assembly hall. And then they sit down now to play this game that they have been invited to play. So Yudhishthira is invited to sit and play. And when he's invited to play, Yudhishthira says in front of everybody, he says, I would rather not play. Dice is the cause of so many terrible things. It destroys friendships, it is a poison, and I do not want to play. And he intuits that they're playing because they want his riches. Why? You gamble for what? For wealth, isn't it? So he tells Duryodhana, you want Indraprastha, you want my wealth? Take Indraprastha, take every single gem, every single coin, every single piece of wealth that I have. You want it? It is yours. We don't need to play this game. Now Shakuni Mama says, you think he's charity or what? Just giving it to him. You think he's lower than you? He can't get his own wealth? Duryodhana does not like that. So that instigation, Duryodhana is like, yes. You think I'm charity or what? Duryodhana is like a little puppet. And so Shakuni goes on, literally goes on and on, chucking this whole situation. And finally, Yudhishthira is backed into a corner. He tries again. He says, a wise person becomes a fool when he starts to play dice. He loses his thinking, he loses his rational capacity, he loses his reasoning power, and like wine, this game of dice destroys all the good qualities in a person. Yudhishthira is saying this before he starts. Does this show he has a weakness for dice? He's very clear about the dangers of this game. But he has been challenged and he's backed into a corner. And even though he tells them, this is like a terrible disease, we should not play, we should not play, we should not play, he has no choice. And so now they're ready to finally, they've agreed it's going to start. And so Duryodhana says, well, my Shakuni Mama will play on my behalf. And Yudhishthira now realizes, well, let me try and avert this game by calling on the rules of the game itself. He says, no. It is the rule that the person who is staking their wealth is the one who has to play. You cannot have a proxy playing for you. So Shakuni cannot play for you. Right? And he also says that game of dice is supposed to be played by equals. And right now, Yudhishthira was the most wealthy emperor in the whole land. And he said, we're not equals. Not to show that he has more, but to try and avert playing. He said, we are not equals. So I cannot play with you. Means he has more than Duryodhana. So Duryodhana said, fine. I'm going to merge my wealth with my Shakuni Mama and now we're equal. But Duryodhana's wealth was much more than Shakuni Mama's. So really, Duryodhana should have been the one playing, not Shakuni. But Yudhishthira tried to call him out, and Dhritarashtra sitting on the throne said, no, don't worry. This is just a friendly game. We don't need to follow the rules of dice like that. This is not anything serious. It's just a friendly little match together like that, Dhritarashtra says. And Dhritarashtra authorizes the commencement of this game, not following the rules of dice. So the first, okay, what are you going to stake? What are you going to stake? And then, Yudhishthira says, I stake 1,000 horses. And Duryodhana says, I stake 1,000 horses. And then Shakuni Mama rolls the dice and he throws it, and obviously it's rigged. So he says, we won, over and over and over again. And this goes on until Yudhishthira stakes every single drop of wealth that he has. He has lost his kingdom. He has lost every form of wealth. Instruments were wealth. He staked all his instruments. Gems and weapons and everything was staked in this game. Because you know how gambling works. You have a hope that the next time you're going to win. Is that not how it works? You have a hope that this next time you're going to win. And he has already said it is a terrible disease. Once a person starts, they lose their rational thinking. And so at this point, he has totally lost his rational thinking. Now, while this is going on, Dhritarashtra is sitting on the throne and he's blind. He cannot see, remember? And so he's asking, he just heard, we won. And he's like, what did they win? What did they win? And you can see the excitement on his face and the bias in his voice that he's happy that his son is getting all of this extra wealth by cheating. At this point, Vidurji, the wise prime minister, also Dhritarashtra's brother, reminds him, your son is going to be the destruction of everything. Stop this game now. Don't just stop it. Ask Arjuna to get up and fight with him and let him destroy Duryodhana now. If not, the entire lineage is going to be destroyed. Put a stop to this now. Dhritarashtra stays silent. And when the king stays silent, things remain status quo. So now Yudhishthira has no wealth left. And here's Shakuni Mama. Is that your only wealth? No. He doesn't say that. He says, what all you staked, is that your real wealth, or your real wealth is something else? Now you think Yudhishthira actually cares about all the wealth he had? For someone who is dharmic, what is his real wealth? His real wealth is not money and fame and name. His real wealth is his family. Well, that is where things went really bad. And he staked his youngest brother, Nakula. And Nakula was lost. Staked means so now Nakula was won as a slave by the Kauravas. Then he staked Sahadev, his next brother. And then Shakuni Mama said, so you're staking the brothers that are your step brothers. You're instigating, And then he stakes Arjuna, and he loses Arjuna. And then he stakes Bhima, and he loses Bhima. And they're all sitting right behind him, and they're saying nothing because they have so much reverence for their brother Yudhishthira. Then he stakes himself, and he loses himself too. And then Shakuni says, do you have nothing else left? No other wealth? And then he stakes their wife Draupadi. And that is the worst thing that could have happened over there that day. And obviously he rolls the dice, and Draupadi is now lost as a slave. Duryodhana and all of his wicked team Duryodhana, he has a gang, there's... Sing along. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Duryodhana is ecstatic. Karna, his best friend, is very ecstatic. Dushasan, his brother, ecstatic. Shakuni Mama, ecstatic. Everybody is absolutely shocked at what has just happened. Draupadi is a queen. She's the daughter-in-law of that palace. And she has just been staked and lost as a slave. Vidurji gets up and he says, Draupadi cannot be lost because Yudhishthira staked himself before he staked Draupadi. And therefore he has no right over her, and therefore Draupadi is not a slave. She cannot be lost after he lost himself. Vidurji got up and said this very clearly at the beginning. And in a long, big conversation over there, he tells very clearly, if you do not listen to me, your destruction is certain. Draupadi is born to destroy all the Kshatriyas. She's fire just waiting to burn them, right? But if you cannot hear, they say what? If you can't hear, you will feel. That is what happens to Duryodhana. Duryodhana insults Vidurji at this point. His arrogance has become so much, he insults Vidurji. And he sends a servant to go and call Draupadi now to this sabha. Remember, this sabha is made of only men. It is not a place where a woman comes just like that. In those days, that was the way it worked. And so, this servant goes and tells Draupadi what happens and says, you are being summoned to this sabha. And Draupadi says, go and ask them if I am really lost. If Yudhishthira lost himself first, am I really lost? Go and ask them. I am not going until I get an answer. And so this poor servant goes back and he says, Draupadi has asked this question. And they say, let her come and ask it herself. Let her come here and ask it herself. I want to go very quickly through this section. A lot happens here. But long story short, Draupadi says, I will come only if Yudhishthira says I have been lost. I am not coming otherwise. And she gets a message. Yudhishthira does not say she's lost. He's asked multiple times and he never says it. He says, let her come and ask the elders what is dharma. This is Yudhishthira's answer. And actually, this is Yudhishthira's biggest gamble. When will you send a warrior into the battlefield? Only when you know that they can fight that war. Yudhishthira knew the power, the strength, the clarity of Draupadi. And he knew that she was their last hope in dharma being held. And so In a very sad event, Dushasan, who is Duryodhana's brother, goes and pulls Draupadi to the court with her hair. She is running to Gandhari, her mother-in-law, Duryodhana's mother, to protect her. And he pulls her hair and he pulls her to this sabha. And she, at this point, has lost her tears. And now there's only anger in her heart. She is so angry. And she says, there is no such thing as dharma in this court when Bhishma and Drona are allowing this kind of thing to happen. How can elders and gurus allow this kind of thing to happen in front of them? She says it straight to their face. And she asks everybody, am I lost or am I not lost? She looks at the elders and she asks them, if Yudhishthira lost himself first, did he have any right to stake me? If I am lost, I will follow dharma. But am I lost? That is her question. And Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma, seems to be genuinely confused about what is dharma. He says dharma is very subtle. And she tells them that, my husband was backed into a corner to play this game of dice. She knows clearly that this whole thing was a conspiracy. She calls them out and she says, you forced him into a corner and now you're saying that you fairly won? Don't say that. So she argues and she fights and she brings up every single possible logical argument at that time. Okay? And she says, it is no sabha where there are no elders. And there are no elders when dharma is not being protected. So this is not a real sabha. She says in front of the elders. Look at the power and clarity that this woman Draupadi had. At this time, Bhima, who is brother number 2, Draupadi is married to all 5 of them. Okay? Bhima is really, really, really angry at this time. And he says, go and bring me fire. I want to burn Yudhishthira's hands now. This is the first time he's ever said something against his brother. And Arjuna says to Bhima, look, can you not see that he himself is burning so much already? Can you not see that it is the aim of the Kauravas to divide us? Can you not see that our strength is in remaining together? If you start to do this and say this kind of thing, they will have won. They haven't won yet. Be quiet. And Arjuna, with his clarity and his reasoning, he makes Bhima stay quiet. Vikarna, that one good brother of the 100, he gets up and he defends Draupadi and he says she is not lost. Now this Karna, who many people think he is a wonderful person, they have not read this section of Mahabharata. He says things that are beyond the capacity of anybody ever repeating them again. Despicable, vulgar, disgusting things he says in that sabha at this time. And he says, well, they are all our slaves, so take off the upper cloth of the Pandavas and disrobe Draupadi. This is Karna's words. And so now, the Pandavas, they know that they're slaves to the Kauravas, and they take off their crowns and they take off their upper cloths. But what happens to Draupadi is unacceptable. Dushasana starts to pull at her sari. And Draupadi looks. Grandfather, father-in-law, guru of the Kuru dynasty. You have great warriors of every kind, 5 husbands, and not a single person saying anything. Draupadi just gives them all a look. And what she does is she puts her hands up and she knows that there's only one person who is going to take care of her. One person who is going to take care of her. She doesn't for a moment worry about her honor. She doesn't for a moment worry, what are they doing to me? She lifts her hands up and she says, Bhagavan Krishna, I knew you were the only one who was going to save me. And at that time, her sari, as Dushasan is pulling, I think everybody knows this, as Dushasan is pulling, the sari gets longer and longer and longer. There is no end to the sari that is being pulled. And as he's pulling, this sari is coming out in a rainbow of colors. And there's this huge mass of cloth over there. But the thing is, Bhagavan, this is the sweetest part of the story. Bhagavan Sri Krishna did not send Draupadi cloth. You know, they have some images where he puts his hand out and then you'll see cloth coming out. He does not send cloth to Draupadi. He himself becomes the cloth that protects her. This is one of the rare forms of Bhagavan's avatars. He takes Vastra avatar. Vastra is clothes. He takes avatar in the form of clothing, in the form of Draupadi's sari. And in her total surrender, this is how he protects her. Name Bhakta Pranashyati, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says over and over again in Bhagavad Gita, my devotee will never perish. And so, you see here now this big Dushasan pulling and pulling, and her sari is not ending. And nobody over there realizes that this is some divine miracle that is happening. Like their brains are, I don't know what happened to their brains at that time. Huh? At this point, Dushasan is exhausted and he stops and he lets go. Bhima is so angry. So angry. He says, those hands that dared to touch Draupadi, I am going to rip that Dushasan's chest, his heart, and I am going to bathe Draupadi's hair, which he touched in her blood, and I am going to drink that blood. Now, when you're emotional, you say all sorts of things, but you can imagine how angry he would have been at that time. Understandably angry, isn't it? Well, again Vidurji says, Draupadi is not lost. And again these Kauravas go on, and Karna says, take her to the slaves' quarters. This kind of disgusting thing. Karna says, you can choose any of us as your husbands now. On and on they're going. After Bhagavan Sri Krishna is present there as the clothes that protected her, they still did not get it. They still did not understand that they cannot defeat the Pandavas. At one point, Duryodhana hits his thigh and he says, come and sit here. And that is just enough. Bhima says, I am going to break that thigh, wait. It is so disrespectful to do that to not just a queen, but your sister-in-law, right? And again, Dushasan tries to drag Draupadi. At this point, Bhima gets up and he takes a vow. And he says, I vow to kill every single one of these 100 brothers. And then Arjuna gets up and he vows to kill Karna. And then Sahadev gets up and he vows to kill Shakuni. And Nakula gets up and he vows to kill Shakuni's son. And at this time, the Devatas shower flowers from Svarga. You see flowers being showered down in this Sabha. And they said it is only because of Yudhishthira that we are still quiet. Huh? At that time, because of how they were roaring their vows, Arjuna roared like a lion. The description is there, he roared like a lion when he told his vow. And at this time, fear enters the heart of Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra becomes petrified because he is worried about what is going to happen to his children now. And at this time, Dhritarashtra says to Draupadi that such a thing should not have happened to you. After everything has happened and after he's done nothing and after it's gone on and on and on, now he tells Draupadi, you are the daughter-in-law of this palace. This should not have happened. Ask for a boon. Draupadi says, I ask for Yudhishthira back. When your husband does something to make you angry, you don't want to have anything to do with him. He staked her. And what she did was she asked for him back because she knew in his heart of hearts he was a noble person. She knew that he had goodness in his heart. Just because he had a weakness did not mean he was wicked. Then Dhritarashtra said, no, that is not enough. Ask for something again. And she said, I asked for my remaining 4 husbands with all their weapons. And he said, no problem. He said, ask again. She said 2 things. She said, once I have them, and once they have their weapons, we don't need anything else. And second, I am not greedy. It is dharma to not ask beyond 2 things. 2 was the limit of boons. Sometimes I guess they had a lot of boons in those days or what, but there was a limit on boons also. You're not supposed to ask for more than 2 boons when you ask. And so with such integrity, she refused to ask for anything more. Dhritarashtra realized the power that Draupadi had. And he said, you know what? Just think of this as a really bad dream. I give you all back your whole kingdom, all your money, all your wealth, everything that was lost. You take it back and you please go back to your home, Indraprastha. And so now the Pandavas and Draupadi get up to leave with Kunti. And as they are leaving, they've left, they've started to walk towards Indraprastha. Dushasan says, Duryodhana, we're just going to let them go. We had everything. and Shakuni says, yes, I got everything for you without a single drop of blood. I got more for you than we talked about. And so now they go to Dhritarashtra, and Duryodhana says to Dhritarashtra, have you gone mad? Have you lost your mind? He's saying to his father, has madness entered your mind? What craziness are you doing? How can you give them everything back? And Dhritarashtra says, I had no choice. And again, what did they do? They twist his hand, they twist his mind, they pull on his extreme helpless attachment for Duryodhana, and they pull all the strings that they can, and they convince him that he should invite them back for a final game of dice. Just now, such a terrible thing has happened. And they convince him and they say, let them come back. This time, we won't put any kind of wager like that. What we will say is, whoever loses is going to go into exile for 12 years. And in the 13th year, they have to go into incognito, into hiding. And if they're discovered in that 1 year, they have to go back into the 12 years again, and then 1 year of incognito, and then that cycle goes on. And the principle behind this was, 1, obviously greed, but 2, they realized how powerful and how dangerous the Pandavas were. Dushasan said, they're not going to let you live. They're going to come for you. And so this was a strategy for them to get rid of the Pandavas out of fear also. Get them as far away from us as possible, so that we can gain strength and they can't do anything to us. So this was their plan. At this time, Duryodhana's mother, Gandhari, she says, you know, I wish we took the advice of Vidura when you were born, and I wish we had destroyed you at that moment itself. Imagine for a mother to say this kind of thing to her son. It means things would have gotten really bad. She says, you go to the Pandavas, they will forgive you. Give up this nonsense. But now Dhritarashtra is blinded by his attachment for his son. If he loved his son, he would have stopped it. It was attachment for his son. And Dhritarashtra gives in again. And he knows that Yudhishthira cannot say no when his elders invite him to come. So now Yudhishthira is invited. What would you do? The most terrible thing ever has just happened, and you're being asked to come back for another game of dice. What would you do? A lot of people judge. You say, you know, he shouldn't have. What was wrong with him? How could he have gone back? But tell me, is it not true that you say, take something simple. I am not going to eat sweets again. I have eaten too much junk food. I am not going to eat any more junk food. I have drank too much sweet drink. I'm not going to drink sweet drink tomorrow. Have you said that? Yes or no? Have you broken that? So is it possible to say you're going to not do something and then shock yourself and do it? Yudhishthira knows that him going and playing this game is going to lead to destruction. But he has now surrendered to fate. He totally surrenders to fate, and he says, whatever has to happen is going to play out. And he goes. Everything is same. The hall is same, the dice is the same, the people sitting on the two sides are same, the people sitting around, every single thing in this second game of dice is the exact same. The only difference is the condition. Now obviously, what happens? The dice is rolled and everything, the Kauravas win. So now the Pandavas are forced to go into exile for 12 years and 1 year in Hariom sound. Hariom, it's off. Hariom, the battery is dead. It's blinking, it'll die again. Okay, so now these Pandavas have started to leave and go to the forest. At this time, Vidurji blesses them. And he says, I bless you that all the oaths that you have taken, you will be able to accomplish them. Remember the oaths that they had taken in the previous game of dice? He blesses them. All your oaths will be accomplished. Shri Krishna Kanhaiya Lal Ki Jai. Vidurji blesses the Pandavas and they are setting off for the forest. And Vidurji tells them at this point, you know, your mother Kunti is too old to go to the forest again. Leave her. Leave her at the palace and I will take care of her. She's his sister-in-law, right? She says, I will take care of her, you don't worry about her. And so Kunti is left back and the boys and Draupadi all do pranams to Kunti. And at this point, Kunti looks at Draupadi and she knows what has happened to her daughter-in-law. And she says, my sons are alive because of you. Which mother will say that? But she recognizes the power and the grandeur of this Draupadi. And they set off. The Pandavas go to the forest. Now Dhritarashtra asks Vidurji to describe to him how they left and what happened. And Vidurji describes to Dhritarashtra that as they were leaving, all the citizens of Hastinapur wanted to go with them. He said it looked exactly like when Bhagavan Sri Rama was leaving to go to the forest for 14 years and the citizens wanted to accompany him. Their eyes went as far as they could. Rishis and Brahmanas accompanied them and went with them to the forest. Everybody was heartbroken that they had to leave. He explains, Yudhishthira left looking down on the ground, eyes down. Bhima left looking at his hands, his arms. Arjuna left kicking the sand. And Nakula and Sahadev left hiding their faces. And while they were leaving, their guru was chanting mantras from the Vedas with kusha grass. And Dhritarashtra says, does all this symbolize something? Because when Vidurji speaks, he doesn't just speak like that, you know. And Vidurji said, Yudhishthira is looking down because he knows if he looks at anything in Hastinapur, his tapas is so much that with his eyes, he can burn down this whole kingdom. That's how powerful he is. You know how Lord Shiva could burn with his eyes? That is how Yudhishthira was. If he looked back, he could have burned the entire kingdom with just his looks. Bhima is looking at his hands because he's looking at how he's going to use these hands to destroy every single one of your children one by one. Arjuna is kicking the sand and he's watching every grain of sand, imagining it to be the arrows that he is going to shower on this family of yours. Nakula and Sahadev are hiding their faces because they don't want anyone in the kingdom to see their beauty and desire them. And the guru chanting mantras is indicating that the funeral rites for your children is imminent. Your children are on the way to their death, basically. And Vidurji is extremely angry. He tells Dhritarashtra, what you have done is very, very wrong, and he leaves. Naraji comes at this time, and Naraji goes to visit Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra asks him, you know, all these omens that have been happening and everything that is being said. Naraji said, you can enjoy for 14 years, not one day more. Enjoy all this wealth, enjoy all this luxury, because in 14 years, none of it is going to remain for you to enjoy. Oh, I forgot, Draupadi. Draupadi had her hair open, and she also was looking down. Why? Because she was imagining how in 13 years, after they come back from the forest, and the war is fought, every single one of the wives of these Kaurava boys is going to look the same way as her as they're walking to the pyre of their husbands. The destruction of the Kauravas is inevitable now. And so Naraji says that they're going to reap the results of their karma. They're going to be destroyed. And at this time, Dhritarashtra is just in despair. What did he expect? That things would be good? Really? Like you expected them to say anything different? He is so blind, not just physically blind, he is blind inside as well. And at this point, he asks his trusted charioteer Sanjaya to try to console him and all the grief that he is feeling. And in simple words, all that Sanjaya says is good for you. You deserve this. And do you know, from that day on, Dhritarashtra did not have one moment of peace. He was in the midst of luxury. He had all the wealth of the kingdom. He could not enjoy an iota of that wealth for an iota of a moment. All that he could think about was what was to come. So now let us just pause and think a little bit about what just happened. Draupadi, you can see, was not a helpless woman. Many times in our Shastras, they portray women as helpless. You know, when you watch the serials, you'll see how they portray Sitaji as this poor, frail, helpless woman. You read Ramayana and you'll see she is far from frail and helpless and weak. Our women of the Shastras are extremely, extremely, extremely strong. They are wonderful role models. They have strength, they have integrity, they have clarity, they have wisdom. There's nothing that they don't have. And Draupadi, you see her power when she stands up in this sabha where no one is standing up for her. And she questions, what is happening? What is dharma? What is the right thing that should be done over here? She's not afraid of the consequences of the question, but she's not afraid to ask. You know, you'll observe so many times wrong things happen in life because people are afraid to question. People remain silent. Have you observed that? Where adharma happens because people just didn't speak up? Well, Draupadi was not afraid at all. The second wonderful quality about Draupadi is her total 100% surrender and faith to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So much faith she had in Bhagavan Krishna that not for a moment did she doubt what would happen to her. Actually, there's a really nice story. One day, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Rukmini, his wife, all his wives, Satyabhama and all were around, and Draupadi was also there. And something happened and Bhagavan Sri Krishna got a little cut on his finger. And everyone went looking for a band-aid for his cut finger. And before anyone could find anything, Draupadi took her sari and she tore it. And she took a small piece of her sari and she binded Bhagavan Sri Krishna's cut. And at that time, Bhagavan Sri Krishna smiled and he looked at the cloth, probably thinking, you have given me this tiny little piece of cloth. You wait and see how I return this cloth to you. For a tiny piece of cloth, he gave her her dignity, her protection, everything. The other thing is, see the way Draupadi forgave her husbands. So much so, she had no hatred, but she understood the problem. Then she had so much integrity. She asked for 2 boons, no more. But the other thing is, she never lets her husbands forget. Anytime the topic of, maybe we should let it go comes up, Draupadi fires up. What do you mean? Do you not see my hair? She refused to tie her hair until her hair was washed with Dushasana's blood, like Bhima promised. And in those days, tying your hair was considered a cultured thing to do. Tying hair was a cultured thing that was done. Anyways, later on, after the war, once she's queen again, Draupadi actually plays an integral role in clarifying the laws around women. And a lot of the rights that women enjoy today were established and clarified by Draupadi when she was queen at her time. She put in place laws to make sure that nobody ever went through something like she went through. She made sure to make it very clear that a woman is not the property of her husband, that there's no vagueness in a woman being wagered by a man. She made it so clear. You want to talk about women empowerment? Draupadi was like women empowerment leader of her time. And so she made sure that none of us had to suffer the way she suffered. Okay? Now someone might ask, why did the Pandavas have to go through so much? Why did things have to get so bad? There are a few answers. The simplest answer is, unless we see how low we can fall, we don't actually realize the impact of adharma. Because we think, how bad can it be? How bad can it be? How bad can it be? But someone really has to hit rock bottom for us to be able to see the value of not falling. And this is there externally portrayed for us to learn from it. Another thing I wanted to talk about was this gambling issue. We shouldn't judge Yudhishthira. It is true what he did was wrong. But he knew that he was going to do what was wrong because he knew the power of gambling. He said it in the beginning. This is a disease. You lose your rational thinking. He had a weakness. He knew it was a weakness that happens when you start to gamble. And he tried every single way to stop it. We gamble every day with the things that are our greatest wealth. Do we not gamble with our time? Every time we pick up that phone and we scroll, it's called doom scrolling also nowadays. Every time we pick up our phone and we scroll and we burn time, we're gambling with time. Isn't time a limited wealth in our life? Every time that we eat something we shouldn't, or we don't exercise when we should, we're gambling with our health. We hope that everything will be fine, in spite of us not doing what we should do. We gamble with our body when we don't treat it the way we should. We gamble with our mind when we feed it all kinds of garbage that we watch outside nowadays, and we don't do the sadhanas we're supposed to. So we gamble all the time. Now Dhritarashtra, our dear Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is an external expression of our own mind. Our mind is blinded by our own attachments. And when the Dhritarashtra in us comes out, that is when you see the expression of spoiled, entitled children. You know children that are spoiled? You know children that feel entitled? Well, that is no different than Duryodhana. And so, when we watch Dhritarashtra's actions, it is supposed to remind us that a parent is not supposed to do things to make their children like them. Your child is going to love you no matter what. But parents don't want their children to love them. They want them to also like them. So, I will give you a video game. I will give you a new phone. I will give you anything that you want. That is only causing the destruction of the child. That phone is a drug. You know that, right? That phone is worse than a drug actually. But parents, out of love, they give it. And destruction only is to come out of that. And so this is one of the... Anyways, this was the worst thing that was to happen in the Mahabharata so far. In the war that comes, a few more things are going to be there. But now the war is just a matter of time. It is no more, maybe. It is, when is the war going to start? Okay. So now the Pandavas go to the forest. And this section called Sabha Parva, the chapter called Sabha Parva, comes to an end. And now the Vana Parva, or the chapter where they're in the forest, begins. Shall we start? Yes, let us start it. When the Pandavas reach the forest, Bhagavan Shri Krishna comes to visit them. And Draupadi is angry. And she says, Bhagavan Krishna, how could you let this happen to us? How could you let this happen to me? How could you allow this to happen? And she is fuming and she is angry. Actually, she and Bhagavan Krishna are friends like this. You know, her name is Krishna. Draupadi's other name is Krishna, not Krishna. Please, when you say Krishna, you're talking about Draupadi. When you say Krishna, you're talking about Bhagavan Krishna. So watch how you say it. Anyways, they were like this. They were really good friends. He loved her like a sister. And she very clearly said, what is wrong with you? How could you let them do this? And she complains bitterly about how she was treated in that sabha. I don't want to go into the details because it is a very painful section actually. But Bhagavan Krishna says at that time, he says, you know what? Let us go right now. Right now, let us go and fight them. Forget 12 years, 13 years business. Right now, let us go and fight them. My army is there, my army will fight. And Draupadi looks at him. And Draupadi says, whatever Yudhishthira thinks. She doesn't say, Krishna, you're the Lord of the universe, whatever you think. That is how much faith she has in Yudhishthira's determination of dharma. That is how much reverence she has for the nobility that is Yudhishthira. And so, in this really funny episode, actually, everything is so intense, right? And when Krishna says, I'll give my army and we'll go and fight them right now, Bhima says, what? We don't need your army. My hands, I'll catch them like worms and destroy them with my fingers like this. Keep your army. So, you can just imagine, but Yudhishthira says, actually, when anybody makes a decision in anger, that decision is always a dharma. Any decision made in anger is a dharma. And so the right thing for us to do is to wait the 12 years, let everybody's anger calm down, and then we will fight. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna knew that Draupadi would surrender to Yudhishthira, and he knew that Yudhishthira would surrender to true dharma, and so he did not have any problem offering to Draupadi that let us go and fight right now. But the Pandavas did what was right. When you study this, it reminds us about how following dharma is not easy. But just because it is not easy doesn't mean that we shouldn't follow it. It is a reminder to us about how we should stick to dharma, even when it is hard. And so now, these Pandavas begin 12 wonderful years in the forest. I'm calling it wonderful because they had satsang. They had happiness. In spite of everything, they had more than what the Kauravas had sitting in the palace. But now if we start, then we won't finish. So we'll stop here and we will pick up this Vana Parva tomorrow in Windsor Forest. Which Mandir? Temple Street, Windsor Forest. If you are free and you don't have service in your mandir and you would like to join, please do join us. We will be seeing how these Pandavas now prepare for war. It is one thing to follow dharma, and it is one thing to not fight back. But it is not true that a dharmic person should stand down and be walked over. And so, following dharma, they now prepare and make themselves powerful to fight the Kauravas. We will see how that happens tomorrow. Alright, I'll share a couple of announcements and then we will do Aarti. I had shared last time that this Tushin Mandir now feels like Ashram, Chinmay Mission, satellite ashram. Everyone, it feels like family here, and it's so nice to be back here every time we come. And anyone who is interested in, anyone who is interested in studying our Shastras systematically, we're teaching Ramayana class, Bhagavad Gita class, all Vedanta classes, symbolism in Hinduism, anything in Hinduism that there is to learn, how to be a Pandit, how to chant properly, anything. Chinmay Mission's main role, Chinmay Mission's main work is teaching. We teach everything in Sanatana Dharma. So if that is something you're interested in, you please join any of the classes that are going on. We have programs for all ages. We start with Chinmay Mission's curriculum starts when the child is in the womb. Their education starts in the womb. Then when they're little babies, there's a class for babies. Then there's classes for toddlers and infants and little children and older children and youth and young professionals and adults and parents and seniors and everybody. And so if it is something you're interested in, well, Chinmay Mission is here. We're happy to come to your mandir, come to your home. Anytime we can do a camp, a class, a satsang. Alright. We will be starting Bhagavad Gita chanting competition on Bhagavad Gita chapter 12. When you chant Bhagavad Gita, you enchant Bhagavan Krishna. And when you chant it, then eventually the meaning becomes yours. You know, if you meet somebody on the street and you say, hey, how much money you have in your bank account? They'll look at you and say, what is wrong with you? But if you spend time with somebody and you become close to them and they become your friend, you don't even need to ask them. Will they not tell you their secrets themselves? In the same way, when we chant the verses of Bhagavad Gita and they become ours, the meaning of those verses reveals itself to us. And so we chant this Bhagavad Gita to allow it to become ours so that eventually the meaning will reveal itself to us. We're inviting people who are interested in becoming teachers. We will train you, and if you pass, 100% is the pass mark, because 99% means that everyone will learn only 99% correct after that. 100% is the pass mark. You come, you learn to chant properly, we will train you, and then you will get a class and you will get to teach other people also how to chant this chapter 12. It's really a competition with our own selves to do the best we can. So if you have the time, twice a week, half an hour twice a week is all you need actually for the next few months to learn, and then half an hour twice a week to teach. So let us know if you're interested, okay? Last announcement, the Vedanta course. Chinmay Mission has a 2-year Vedanta course which is meant to systematically teach Vedanta, or philosophy of Hinduism, as it was originally taught in Gurukul style. So you go to the ashram and you stay there for 2 years, and you have class starting at 5:30 a.m. ending around this time at night. Every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you go to SVN and you're in your final year, then you will be very prepared for that, because every day seems the same. But No, really, the training is every single day, no holidays, no weekends, and you study Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, meditation, puja, everything you study in a systematic way. For those who are interested, it is a life-transforming, wonderful experience. You have to be around 30 or under, have a university degree, and be unmarried. And if you apply and you get in, then it is a free course. It is a service that Chinmay Mission offers in training the next generation in Sanatana Dharma. Okay, so this is happening in Trinidad starting on October 2nd. Swami Prakashanandaji will be the Acharya for the 2 years. If you know anyone, please let them know. It is an opportunity that really is not to be missed. Okay? Alright, thank you so much to Shin Mandir, to Pandit Krishna and family and all the people that made this satsang possible. We'll do Aarti. Okay. भगवान् विष्णु मङ्गलं गरुडध्वजः मङ्गलं पुण्डरीकाक्षं मङ्गलायतनो हरिः त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की जय। श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। हर हर नमः पार्वती पतये। हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम।